We begin today the Gemara on Daf Kuf Lamed Amud Aleph, the Mishnah. Sagt Heilige Mishnah, Ha'omer, a person before he passes away says, Ish Ploini, this person, Yirasheni, should inherit me, b'mokim sheyesh bas. And he's saying this in the place where he has a daughter. So therefore the daughter should really inherit him. But instead he's saying someone else should take her place and inherit him. So the Rashbam says the example for this that the Mishnah is saying, Ish Ploini, doesn't just mean necessarily a stranger. It means someone that's next in line to be the one to inherit. If there's no daughter, who's the next one in line to inherit? A brother. So he's saying, even though I have a daughter, and she's before the brother to inherit, but let the brother inherit and not my daughter. Or another example, he says, Biti tirasheni, my daughter should inherit me, b'mokim sheyesh ben, in a place where he has the son, which is the first in line to inherit him. Loi omaklum. What he said is pointless. Shehisna alma shekasa b'teira, because he's making new conditions of the inheritance against what the Torah says, that the inheritance goes to the son first or to the daughter first. However, Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika says, Im Omar al misha roi liyarshay dvarav kayamin. If he's saying regarding one person that is anyways fit to yashin him, elamai, it usually is shared. For example, if he has 5 sons, and the inheritance is shared between the 5 sons, and he comes and says, let all the inheritance go to just one son. So then, what he says does take effect, even though he's sort of changing what the Torah said, that it's supposed to be shared by all 5 sons. But since the one that he's giving it to is Roi L'Yarshai, it takes effect. The Gemara will learn it from a pasuk. But if he comes and says that the inheritance should go to someone that's not fit to inherit him, so he's taking it away from someone that's supposed to be inheriting and giving it to someone else that's not supposed to inherit him, then Ein Dvarav Kayamin. Then his words will not take effect. Okay, this is the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika. We had quoted in the Gemara before a few times. This is Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika's Chiddush, that you could change the Yerusha min HaTorah as long as you're giving it to someone that's fitting to Yarshin you. Okay, but now here the Gemara is going to clarify what exactly is the machlokes of the Tanakama and Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika. When you read the simple words of the Mishnah, it seems like that there is no machlokes between them, as the Gemara points out. So the Gemara, now going to the words of the Tanakama. What did the Tanakama say? That a person wants to give his inheritance to someone else, meaning to a brother of his, and not to his own daughter. So that, the Tanakama says, does not work. So the Gemara is medayik, the acher b'mokim bas. Tanakama is saying the reason it doesn't work is because you're giving it to someone else, to a brother, which is now not supposed to be inheriting you in the place where there's a daughter. Or the second example of the Tanakama, bas b'mokim ben, if you're giving it to a daughter in a place where he has a son. So if so, ha ben abonim, but from the Tanakama it would seem that if there's one son amongst other sons, or bas ben abonais, or there's one daughter amongst other daughters, and this father is coming and saying, I want the Yerusha to go to one son, or to one daughter, amongst other sons, or amongst other daughters, in such a case, dvarav kayamin, his words will take effect. That's what it seems like you could be medayik from the words of the Tanakama. Now, if that's the case, then you read what Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika says. Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, im Omar al misha roi l'yarshay dvarav kayamin. If he's saying that he wants to give the Yerusha to someone that's fit to inherit him now, then his words take effect. Says the Gemara, Haina Tanakama. Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika is saying the exact same point as the Tanakama. That only if you want to give away the Yerusha to someone else that's not supposed to be inheriting you now, does it not take effect. But if you want to give it away to someone that should be inheriting you now, Elamai, you want to give him the whole thing, it does take effect. So what is the difference between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika? Okay, so the Gemara suggests to say as follows. If you'll say, Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, really Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika's opinion is that afila acher b'mokim bas, even if you want to give away the Yerusha to a brother in the place where you have a daughter, or a bas b'mokim ben, you want to give it to a daughter in a place where you have a son, kamar. Even in such a case, Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika is saying that you have the ability to do this. Meaning, the way to read what Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika says, roi l'yarshay doesn't necessarily mean someone that now is able to yarshin you. Now he's not able. Because if you have a son, a daughter can't yashin. Or if you have a daughter, a brother can't yashin. Roi l'yarsha means someone that is in the line of Yerusha. If you wouldn't have a daughter, the brother could have yashin. If you wouldn't have a son, the daughter could yashin. It's even there that Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika says that you're able to give away the Yerusha to a brother or to a daughter. Maybe that's what Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika is arguing on the Tanakama. So the way that Rashbam explains this is that the Tanakama really holds, and this is based on the previous Mishnah, the Mishnah right before this said that if a father comes along and is marbe or is memayit, if he has a few sons and he decides to give one son more than another son, the Mishnah says it doesn't take effect unless you use a language of a matana. So then a matana, a gift, you can give whatever you want. But if you say a lashon yerusha, you can't give to one son more than another. That's what we had in the previous Mishnah. So therefore the Rashbam says that the chiluk between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yochanan ben Breke is a very big difference, because the Tanakama holds you can't tamper with the Yerusha of Torah, not only in a case where you're taking it away from someone that's supposed to yarsha now and giving it to someone that's later in the line, but even if you're giving it to one son more than another son, you also can't do that, like we saw in the previous Mishnah. So why is the Tana in this Mishnah, why in this Mishnah is he giving the example of a father that wants to give it away to a brother in the place of a daughter, or to a daughter in the place of a son? The reason the Tana in this Mishnah is bringing this example is so that you should understand that when Rabbi Yochanan ben Breke says that you could do it b'makom she'roi l'yarsha, that he's arguing on this point of the Tanakama, that even in this case where you're giving it to someone else that's not even supposed to yarsha now, he's later in the line of yarshaning, even there Rabbi Yochanan ben Breke holds that you could do that, it will take effect. Maybe that's the way to understand the machlokes in the Mishnah here. But the Gemara brings a braisa where it says that this is not Rabbi Yochanan ben Breke's opinion. For Tanya, we learned in the braisa, Rabbi Shmuel, b'nai Rabbi Yochanan ben Breke aimer, Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Breke, said, "Lenechlaku Abba v'Chachamim." My father and the Chachamim did not argue al acher b'mokim bas ubas b'mokim ben, whether a person has the right or the ability to give to someone else, to a brother when there's a daughter, or to a daughter when there's a son. Rabbi Yochanan ben Breke, he says, my father did not hold that over there you can do that. Shalei maklum. Everybody would agree that in such a case, what you said is worthless. Alman nechlaku. What's the case that they were arguing about? Al ben abanim ubas ben abanis. When a person has a few sons or a few daughters, and he wants to give to one son or one daughter more than another. Sha'aba aimer. My father, Rabbi Yochanan ben Breke, said, Hirash, that a person has the power to do that, and the Yerusha will be like he wants, like he said. The Chachamim say, no, the Yerusha will not work. You can't give to one son or to one daughter more. So you clearly see that Rabbi Yochanan ben Breke himself, when he says Roi l'Yarshai, he's only talking about a case where it's one son amongst other sons. But if that's the case, this is then l'chayre, the diuk of the reisha of the Mishnah over here. You see that l'chayre, the Tanakama also agrees to that, because he's only talking about a case. The example that he brings over here is to give a Yerusha to someone else, to a brother in the place where there's a daughter. That you can't do that. That even Rabbi Yochanan ben Breke agrees to. Okay, so the Gemara here gives two pshatim. What am I hearing? Is there maybe something over there that's burning, or sometimes the kettle? What? No? Okay, I'm not sure what that is. Okay, let's go weiter. Sagt the Gemara weiter. So two answers the Gemara says. Either I could say that we just asked the question from a braisa, what Rabbi Shmuel said. Says the Gemara, I can tell you as follows. Midika Omar loy nechlaku. From the fact that it says loy nechlaku, so then what does that mean? Miklal, the Tanakama Sava nechlaku. This is a braisa that we're quoting Rabbi Shmuel. So Rabbi Shmuel interpreted his father's opinion this way. But in that braisa, there was a Tana before, a Tanakama to Rabbi Shmuel, that he holds actually that Rabbi Yochanan ben Breke's opinion is that the father does have an ability to give it to a brother in the place where there's a daughter, or to a daughter in the place where there's a son. And our Mishnah is not going like Rabbi Shmuel. Our Mishnah here is going like that Tanakama of Rabbi Shmuel that says Rabbi Yochanan ben Breke argues with the Tana of our Mishnah. The Tanakama of our Mishnah is saying that you can't give to a brother in the place of a daughter, or to a son in the place of a daughter, to a daughter that is in the place of a son. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Breke holds that you could, that a father is able to give to the next one in the line of the Yerusha. That's one way to understand this machlokes. Or Ibai Seimeh. Or another answer I can say, Kule de Rabbi Yochanan ben Breke. Really, the way to read our Mishnah is, the entire Mishnah is Rabbi Yochanan ben Breke. The Chesure Mechsere, it's missing words in the Mishnah, V'alchi Ketani. And this is how you have to read our Mishnah. Ha'omer, a person comes and says, Ish pleni yirasheni b'makom sheyesh bas. Another person, a brother, should yarsha me in the place where there's a daughter. Or he says, Biti tirasheni b'makom sheyesh ben. My daughter should yarsha me in a place where there's a son. Lo yama klum. What he says does not take effect. Now, what do we understand from the Mishnah? Habas ben abonois, uben ben abonim. But if he's giving to one daughter more than other daughters, or one son more than other sons, then imama yirish kol nechasab. If he wants to give more, or all of it actually, he wants to give all of his possessions to one son or one daughter, dvar of kayamin, then his words take effect. And now you read on in the Mishnah, this is all one continuation. Sher Rabbi Yechanan Aimer, because Rabbi Yechanan ben Breka said, Im Omar, Al Misha Roi LeYarshai, Dvarav Kayamin. If a person wants to give to one son, which is Roi to Yarshanim presently, then his words take effect. So the entire Mishnah here is all Rabbi Yechanan ben Breka. And the opinion of the Chachamim that disagree with Rabbi Yechanan ben Breka, that was already quoted in the previous Mishnah, where it said that if a father wants to give more to one son over another son, he can't do that. But this Mishnah here is all Rabbi Yechanan ben Breka. So it comes out that we have two different ways of understanding Rabbi Yechanan ben Breka's opinion. When could a father give to one more than another? According to the second interpretation we have here, that's only one son between other sons. That's the power that a father has to give to one and not another. According to the first pshat, the Gemara says, Rabbi Yechanan ben Breka holds that a father can give even to a brother in the place of a daughter, or to a daughter in the place of a son. Well, those are the two ways of understanding this. Amar Rav Yudah Mashmuel halacha ka Rabbi Yechanan ben Breka. We paskin like Rabbi Yechanan ben Breka, which refers to the second pshat of Rabbi Yechanan ben Breka, that a father is able to give to one son more than other sons. Amar Rava halacha ka Rabbi Yechanan ben Breka. Amar Rava. Now the Gemara brings the source of Rabbi Yechanan ben Breka's opinion. How could a person say something which is different than what the Torah says, that all children, all the sons should yarshin? So Rava says, my time at Rabbi Yechanan ben Breka. What's the source of Rabbi Yechanan ben Breka's opinion? Makra, the pasuk says, "V'haya b'yayim hanchiloi es banov." It'll be at the time where he will be manchel, he will bequeath to his children. So, what is this lashon of hanchiloi? The pasuk that it should have said, "V'haya b'yayim nachalu banov," that his children will inherit. Hanchiloi, which means he will bequeath, means that he's giving. What does that mean? Nasna reshus la'av. The Torah gives permission to the father, lahanchil, to bequeath, l'chol misha yirtze, to whoever he wishes. And from here we learn that a father can give one son and take it away from all the other sons. Amalei Abaye asks Rava on this source, so don't we have another pasuk that teaches us this? Ha, mulayuchal levaker nafke. Don't we learn this out from the pasuk that it says by a b'chair, that a father can't come and decide to take the double portion from the b'chair and give it to another son, which is not the b'chair, because he loves another son more. Can't do that. That's what the pasuk says. So from the fact that it says that you can't do that by the double portion of the b'chair, from this you understand that when it comes to the regular inheritance, a father does have the ability to do that. He's able to take the nachla of one child and give it to another. That's where we learn it out from. So the Gemara answers, no, ahu mi bayele kedetanya. That pasuk, we learn out something else that it says in the Braisa. Abba Chanan mishum Rabbi Eliezer. Abba Chanan said in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, Ma Talmud Loi Ma La Yuchal Levaker. Why does the pasuk have to say La Yuchal Levaker, that you can't take away the b'chayre from the firstborn and give it to someone else? So the reason I have to say this is because the pasuk says that a father is able to be manchel, he's able to give to one son more than another son. So now I would think as follows. I would think to say dinu. If so, there's a kal v'chaimer. We have two different parts of the inheritance. There's the regular inheritance, and there's the inheritance which is the double portion of a b'chayr. So now I would say as follows: Uma poshut. If it comes to the regular inheritance, shiyafa kaichai. This kind of inheritance that a child takes is a very strong power. Why is that? Because I see that he inherits his father not only from the possessions that the father actually has in his possession when he passes away, but he also inherits from what's roy, meaning even something that the father doesn't have currently in his possession. It's only roy, it's in potential. So we see it's a very strong Yerusha. So but nevertheless, the Torah gives the power to the father to take that away from the son and give it to another son. So if so, b'chair, when it comes to the Yerusha of a firstborn, shahura kaichai, the power of the firstborn to take the double portion is much less. Why? He doesn't inherit so powerfully. He doesn't take something that the father doesn't have right now. So lekal shekain, most definitely the father should have the power to take that away from the firstborn and give it to someone else. Therefore, Talmud Laima leyuchal levaker. Therefore, the Torah has to say that nevertheless, even though it's a weaker type of inheritance, the father cannot take it away from the b'chair and give it to someone else. That's why you need the pasuk of leyuchal levaker. Okay, but now the Gemara continues and asks, if so, v'yoymar leyuchal levaker, let the pasuk just say this, v'layuchal levaker, that you can't take away the b'chair from the firstborn. Why does it have to say that the father is able to be manchel, the regular Yerusha, to another child? Once it already says that it's the double portion that you can't take away, so it's automatically understood from that when it comes to the regular portion of the Yerusha that you are able to take away. So therefore the Gemara continues and says, no, over here I would actually think that, an opposite svara. Sheyachal, I would make the kal v'chomer in the opposite way. I would say, v'halei dinu, that there's a kal v'chomer here. Once the Torah says that you can't take away the double portion from the b'chayr, I would think that you definitely can't take away the regular b'chayr from a child. Why is that? Because I would say, when it comes to the inheritance of a b'chayr, which is a weaker inheritance, because he doesn't inherit from something that's roy, like something that the father has. Nevertheless, the Torah says you don't have the ability to take away that double portion from him. Pashut, if so, when it comes to a son which is inheriting the regular Yerusha, which is a very strong Yerusha. Why? Because he takes even something that the father did not have in his possession when he passed away. Definitely the father should not be able to take away that Yerusha from a child. So therefore, Talmud Leimar, V'hoya, B'yoyim, and Chilei Esbanov, we need the pasuk to say that a father can bequeath to whichever children he wants. Nasna, Reshus, La'av, La'hancha, L'chol Mishayir, etc. The Torah gave permission to the father to give to whichever child he wants. So therefore, we need these two psukim. One pasuk to explain us by a b'chayr, that you can't take away the Yerusha from the b'chayr, even though would be a kal v'chomer that you should be able to, and you need the other pasuk to say that you could take away the regular Yerusha from a child, even though there would be a kal v'chomer that you can't. Okay, the next part of the Gemara is going to focus on the halacha l'maaseh. So the Gemara says, Omer Rav Zrika, Omer Rav Ami, Omer Rav Chanine, Omer Rebbe. What's the halacha? Halacha ke Rabbi Yechanan ben Breike. The Rebbe said the halacha is like Rabbi Yechanan ben Breike. Omer li Rab Abba said, Hoyre itmer. That it's not that he said that the halacha is like Rabbi Yechanan ben Breike, but Hoyre itmer means that there was a story that happened. There was a case where it came up. And in the story that happened, Rebbe paskened like Rabbi Yechanan ben Breike. Meaning, according to the first version, they were learning the subject, and Rebbe said we should pasken like Rebbe. According to the second version, Hayre means that there was a story that actually happened, and in relation to a story, he paskened like Rabbi Yechanan ben Breike. So the Gemara says, "B'maika mifligi." What are they arguing? Whether he said the halacha when they were learning, or he said that it's a halacha when there was a negeya l'maisa. Says the Gemara, Marsava. The first opinion is halacha adifa. That when you say a halacha when you're learning, that's actually stronger. When you're paskening a halacha, when you're learning, then it's something that's more powerful. Why is that? Because when you're learning and you're paskening a halacha, so then you know that this is what the halacha is like. There's no room to make any mistake that maybe it's based on the circumstances of the story. Whenever you pasken a halacha, benegay to a certain maaseh, maybe you don't know all the circumstances, and so you can't really learn out from the psak halacha that someone says in a certain story. But when you're paskening a halacha, when you're learning something, so over here there's the subject, and you know exactly what the subject is about. And you're paskening a halacha, so that's clear that what the halacha is. But Umar Savar, the other opinion actually is no ma'aser rav. When you're paskening a halacha regarding ma'aser, then you could rely on this. Because when you're paskening a halacha, when you're learning, so then you're not medaktik as much, Rashbam says. When a person is learning the subject and you accept one opinion, you're not medaktik as much. You're not so careful in how you're paskening, like when it's negeya l'maisa b'payil. You know that someone's going to be relying on you in paskening b'payil. Over there, you're medaktik much more. And this is something that it's brought to the Rebbe Rashab in Hemshech Samach Vav. He says that when you pasken a halacha, a rav that paskens a halacha l'maisa b'payil, he has to have siyat d'shmaya and he has to have yiras shemayim to know that he's being mechaven la'amita shel Torah when it's negeya l'maisa for you that has to do something. So therefore, there's an advantage to a psak din which is in ma'aser rav. Now the Gemara brings a brayso in connection to this Tana Rabbanan, and a brayso we learned ein lemeiden halacha loy mipi talmud v'loy mipi ma'aser. So here in this brayso it actually says you can't learn a halacha when you hear someone that paskens a halacha, not if he's paskening the halacha when he's learning. Because as I mentioned before, there's a certain chesaron to that, because when you're pasken when you're learning, so then he's not medaktik as much, it's not negeya l'maisa. And also v'lemi pi maisa. You can't pasken even if you see a certain story that happened and the halacha was pasken a certain way. Why? Because it's possible that you don't know all the details of the circumstance. Unless what happened is you had a story yourself, and you came to the Rav to ask and told him the details of the story, and he paskened for you the story. Based on that psak din, you could rely on that. Why? Because in such a case, you know exactly all the circumstances of the story. When the Rav paskens, there is no doubt to think, oh, maybe there's other circumstances that you're not aware of. It's the story it's only the details that you said, that you told the Rav that he's aware of. And based on that, he's paskening the din, and he's paskening b'negei l'maisa. So therefore, in such a case, halacha l'maisa, then you're able to pasken. And the Brisa spells out, shal, you had a certain story that happened to you, and you're bringing up the details, and you asked, what's the halacha? V'amru loy halacha l'maisa, and he tells you the halacha l'maisa, then yelech v'yasa maisa. Then you can go ahead and do based on this psak din. Another thing the Brisa adds, you should not compare, when you have a psak din in one area, don't use that psak din to compare it to another case. Okay, so the Gemara asks on this last point, what does it mean that you shouldn't compare the psak din from one case to another case? Why not? That's the way we always learn in Torah. When you have a psak din in one case, we compare it to another case. How else are you going to paskin? Rav Ashi says, that part of the Brisa was saying as follows. When it comes to halachas of treifis, which refers to different parts of the body of the animal that has a defect in it, and therefore the animal can't live for 12 months, and therefore the animal is a treifa and it's not kosher. So you can't compare a defect in one part of the body of the animal to another part and say that if over here it's treif, that means that if it has a defect in another area that's similar, it would also be treif. You can't make such comparisons when it comes to treifis. There's a certain kabbalah of exactly what's a treif and what's not. The Tani, we learned in the Braise, Ein Oimrim B'Treifes Zu Daimel Zu. When it comes to the halachas of treifes, we don't compare one kind of a defect, one issue to another. And the Braise explains, Val Titma, don't wonder about this. Sharei, we can see that Choitcha Mikan Umeisa, if you have an animal that could be the same limb of the animal, you cut it in one area, it'll die. Choitcha Mikan, you cut it in another area, V'Chaisa, and it could live. So you can't, even though it's in the same limb, you can't compare them. That's what the Braisa meant by saying that you shouldn't be medama, specifically by treifis. Ravasi asks Rabbi Yechanan, Ki Amar Lon Mar Halacha. When the master Rabbi Yechanan tells us a halacha, Heichi Navid. What should we? Hachi again. Ki Amar Lon Mar Halacha Hachi. When the master tells us that the halacha is as follows. Navid Maisa, should we, when we're learning, in other words, when they were learning, and Rabbi Yechanan said the halacha is like this opinion, should we do it in action? Omar, so Rabbi Yechanan said, Loi tavidu, no, you should not do it practically, ad amina halacha lemaisa, unless it's a halacha that's negated to a maisa, as explained before in the Braisa, when there's a certain story that was brought to him, and he paskin, over there you know that it's negated la halacha lemaisa, that's when you could accept it la halacha lemaisa. Rava said to his students, Rav Papa and Avuna Bereder Rav Yeshua, that ki asi piske de dina didi lekamaychu, if a psak din that I said comes in front of you, v'chazisu bei perche, and you have a refutation to what I paskin, loy tikra'uhu, do not tear this psak din, don't throw it out, ad asisu lekamoy, until you come back to me and you'll ask me why I paskin this way. I isli taime, and if I'll have a reason to explain this, I'll explain you. And if I don't have a way of explaining it, then I'll retract my psak din. But don't rely on yourself. Come back to me and ask me why I paskin this way. Then he said, La'acha misa. Rava said, after I pass away and there's a psak din of mine that you have a question on it, Loi mikri tikra'u, do not tear up this psak din, but also on the other hand, or migmanami loi tikimru minei. But you can't paskin like it. You can't learn out from this psak din because you have a question on it. And the Gemara explains, Loi mikri tikri'inu, don't tear up the psak din because the avoy hasam. Because if I was there, if I was still alive, maybe I would have a way of explaining that my psak din is right. So if you're not going to tear up the psak din right away, maybe you'll think into it deeper. And you'll see what the reason is, why I paskin this way. But on the other hand, migmer nami loy tigmeru minei, as long as you don't understand misvara, the psak din, a Rav could never paskin if he himself does not understand why the psak din is supposed to be this way. Why is that? Because the ein l'dayin ela masha ein of royes. Because a judge only paskins based on what he sees. This is a quote that the Gemara says a few places. Usually it simply speaks about physically. You can only paskin based on what you physically see. Over here, the Gemara is using this also in this context, not only what you physically see, but a Rav could only paskin based on what he understands. If he understands al pisvara that it is so, then he paskins. If he doesn't understand al pisvara, then he can't paskin this way.